Welcome to America's Horse on America's Trail with the Mustang Discovery Ride. I'm your host, Julianne Neal. With a goal of 5,000 miles, 5,000 Mustangs, the Mustang Discovery Ride team hopes to bring attention to adoption into appropriate homes for these living legends. Enjoy the ride. In this episode of the podcast, we'll catch up with Lisanne and the team on the trail in Kansas as they head toward Colorado. Stay tuned. So you mentioned the prison program. You all just finished with a visit to the correctional facility, and tell me about that. What happened? How did that end up?
Yeah, I think it ended up good. These guys got to see some more of like how the corral systems worked in ways, because they at this particular facility they have about 300 horses on site, and so those horses' hooves keep growing all the time, and they don't necessarily have the ground to work them down essentially. And so every 6 weeks, each horse has to be brought in to have their feet trimmed. Well, that equates to every day they're trimming, X amount of horses. And so in order to do that with these wild horses, they load them into a chute, and then that chute goes onto its side, and then they can kind of tie up a hoof and be able to trim safely for both the horse and the human. And so that was quite the process that these guys got to see that they hadn't experienced before. And while they were kind of learning more about that, I went in and I got to sit and talk with quite a few of the inmates that are a part of the program. And it was really great because another thing that I'm trying to address is the color barriers. I don't think that horses should just be for a certain group of people. And how do we break down those stereotypes and those barriers where horses are accessible to all and anyone who want to be a part of them. And so it was great talking to an African-American inmate, and he didn't know that he could hang out and work with horses. And out of 17 guys, there's only 4 trainers in that program that actually train the horses, and he's one of them. And he didn't know that that was a possibility until he was in prison, and it was accessible to him in a way. But showing people that anyone can be a part of horses, and getting them involved with horses, and it's life-changing for everyone. And it doesn't necessarily have to relate to your background per se. If you want to have horses in your life, there are ways to make it happen. And so trying to show people that door that they can walk through in that regard. And it was just really great, seeing how those horses had changed a lot of those inmates' life and given them responsibility. And went back to, in a way, my deal, I was a little suicidal for a while, and a lot of what kept me going was just knowing that I had my animals to take care of every day, and this responsibility. And the inmates have kind of been given that responsibility as well, and it gives them a greater purpose in life, and they're really enjoying what they were doing, just being around horses. So that was really amazing to see.
So is their program geared mostly toward training or mostly toward farrier work, or is there a focus for it, or is it just a wide variety of activities?
Yeah, so there's a variety. The program is essentially trying to take these horses from wild to mild. That's the goal, and then get them adopted out into homes. And so they have a contract with the Bureau of Land Management that for every horse that they get adopted out, they get reimbursed for that. But with that being said, there were programs for leather work and sewing, and there's all of these different facets, and they can learn the farrier work. And that, if you want to make money in the horse industry, become a farrier.
That's it, right?
Your own horses are never done, but that's one way to make money in the horse industry, is become a farrier. And the fact that these guys can learn some of the tools of the trade and walk out of there with a little bit more horse sense or a greater leather work. David just bought, we got to do a great interview with an inmate who had already gone through and been released from the program. And he's now making and selling knives. He's a farrier. He's running a cattle operation. He's still training wild horses. And so it's just really amazing to see, what these horses, the little ripple effects and everything around them, and how that spreads out into the world, and just the variety of impact they can make.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, you talk about that with career choices for when they get out. I mean, it's so important. We're talking about the farrier work and the leather work and braiding even. There was a girl in the California program that had done a lot of hair work. And when she saw everything that was going on with the horses at the horse show and how much people made braiding horses, manes and tails and that sort of thing, you just never know what's going to strike somebody as a positive career choice. I do want to ask Katrina how much experience you had no experience with horses before you got involved with this crazy group.
Yeah, the extent of my horse experience was probably like a handful of trail rides, and that's about it. So this is like a whole new world that I am being exposed to, especially coming from like the Chicago suburbs in Chicago. Just there's not many horses around there, or like barn stables, unless you go like far into the suburbs. But I never have explored that area, so this is all very new to me.
Are you finding it something that you're really, is it the people that you're involved with that's really sparking you, or is it the horses? Have you connected with one in particular, or what is your feeling on that?
It's definitely been changing like throughout the trip. I think my connection to this group was definitely started with like Claudia and Marcus, who were in Southern Illinois when I first met everyone, Lisanne and David and Claudia and Marcus. And when Lisanne and David went to St. Louis, then I spent a few days with Claudia and Marcus, and that's like what kind of drew me into the group. And they told me all about like their journey so far and what the mission is and how much they love the horses. And just seeing like how passionate they were about the horses also inspired me to like follow my passions, which is why I decided to join the trip, because my passion is like traveling, and I've always wanted to live life on the road and experience just being able to, I don't know, explore life other than like the traditional way of life that we usually feel pressured to follow, like school and then work, a 9 to 5, buy a house, like all of that. That's never interested me. So this is like kind of a way that I'm getting to live that dream of mine, and hopefully sparking, I don't know, a new way of life in me after this. Because I was supposed to start a 9 to 5 before this trip and decided to quit. So I feel like that was the first step, and now I will be on the road for quite a while.
Well, good. Go, Katrina. I love that. So now's the perfect time to ask about the kittens, because we've talked about the horses. Last time we talked about the dogs. Now I want to hear the kitten story. How did that happen?
Do you want to?
Yeah, so that day that we crossed the Mississippi, one of my worst nightmares came true. When I went on this trip, it's so hard to leave people and things you love behind and know that like you might not ever see them again. And the day we crossed the Mississippi, I had to put my cat Jerry down. He was in liver failure and that kind of thing. And he was with my aunt and uncle, and, they were doing everything that they could. But kind of like we talked about in the last podcast, like the show has to go on. And so, we saddled up and we rode out, and I was really emotional over that. And then 3 days later, I found out my cat that I had since she was a kitten, she wasn't even 4 yet. She pretty much died of a broken heart, not having her friend Jerry. And so within, 4 days, I lost both of my cats. And anyone who's been a Snapchat friend of mine when I was back home, I mean, they got a photo of my cats every day, because my cats just, they were a part of my everyday life. And that was the hardest part of this trip. Those cats had moved up to Montana and lived with me on my horse trailer all last summer. And it was just really, really hard to leave them behind. And to know that I lost them really sucks. And so I was dealing with that. And it just so happened at that Royal Paint Stables with Mackenzie and Thomas, they're in Missouri, where we were staying, their barn cat had a whole litter of kittens. And so we decided that at least one cat was coming with us. You'll see photos of him later. I'll post finally about it on Facebook, but he has this adorable little mustache. And so I named him Charlie Chaplin, and his name is Chap for short. Well, while we were there, David fell in love with one of the cats as well. Both of his older cats had passed away a little while ago, and so we now have Chap's sister Minnie on board. And then we're gonna have two, because I was like, okay, like I'll take one when David goes back to Chicago, he'll take his, and like I can deal with one cat, and it's chaos of my life of traveling on the road all the time. Well, then, like, what, 4 days later?
Yeah, a few days later. Yeah.
Yeah, we ended up staying at this campground where David was setting up his hammock, and this mama cat ran out from under the tree that he was tying his hammock to and left her little kitten behind. Well, and then it didn't help. He may have meowed at it to come out. And yeah, well, then we showed up with my dogs, and that mama cat just never came back to her kitten. And it kind of went like 12 hours without any kind of anything, because like we were waiting for the mom to come back, and she just never did. And so at that point, it was either let nature take its course or interfere. And we chose to take on a third cat on the truck, but that was all Katrina, because I was like, look, like I don't have time personally to do what this kitten needs. And Katrina has dedicated her life to the kitten at this point. She was getting up every 2 hours on the hour to nurse it and bottle feed it. And we learned all sorts of things, like, like the mom has to make the kitten pee, like they don't pee naturally. And so like she's learning all sorts. We both have learned a lot having that tiny kitten on board. And so yeah, she goes everywhere, and her name is Gucha.
Yeah.
So, but she's older now. Katrina, you only wake up twice at night now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I've stopped freaking out so much.
Wow.
When she first emerged from this, it was a hole kind of opening at the base of a big tree. Its eyes were closed, and it was just very, 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 very young and fresh. So
Wow.
it was a very fresh kitten.
Mhm. I
And
mean,
it-
she was
it
super
has
wobbly.
excellent
Yeah.
care now.
So she's probably imprinted right on you, Mama Katrina.
I think so, yeah.
yeah.
But now it's really cute when I walk into the trailer and I like say her name, she'll come out and she'll jump out of wherever she is. Like she knows who I am now, and it's really sweet. And when we first like found her, she was wobbly and she could barely walk, and now she's like climbing up the little stair that we have in the trailer and like, playing with the other kittens and jumping on them. Really cute.
So now, do the other kittens get along with her? They don't beat her up or anything? They all get along?
No, Chap. I think Chap and Gucci are gonna have a little love story, but we'll see.
Oh, you might end up with more kittens.
No,
down
no,
there.
that's
no.
not-
Yeah, they say that. So I say, oh, no.
We will interfere.
No.
Yeah, not doing that. I was only planning on one cat, and now we have 3. So yeah.
That's fantastic. One big happy family. That's what it's all about. So
One big herd. Yeah, happy herd.
one big herd. And so speaking of the herd, I have to ask, Finn, Chileno, everybody's good? Pistachio's good?
Yeah, Pistachio pulled his tail out, so he looks
Tail.
like a dork. I don't know what that was caused by. I wormed him. I've done a lot of things to try to help him. I don't know what it was, but like he physically like would wrap his tail around his rear end and then like reach back with his teeth and grab it, and like he was just like yanking it out. I don't know what that was about. But now he looks like a dork, and he just has like these like little wisps left of like the full length tail. But I just can't bring my heart to cut them so it looks aesthetically a little bit better, because the flies are so bad. But I went and bought a fly sheet to like try to help him, since now he has this wimpy little dorky tail and he can't like smack the flies. So Stash has just always been my special child, so and continues to be so in different ways at all times. So yeah.
Well, that's okay. You have to have a special child in every herd. So
He keeps things lighthearted and good on the trail. I mean, he's very, very good for that. And Abilene, like I talked to the animal communicator, Tinny Gravitt, the other day, and we kind of touched base with Abilene, and she does just seem really genuinely happy, and like she finally feels like she's a part of the herd. Like that's something that I feel like I've been combating ever since I met her like a year and a half ago, is like, she had this tough girl exterior, and she got moved around a lot, and so like she herself like she didn't know the concept of family, and she didn't know the concept of like being a part of a herd anymore. And so, you know, it's been hard to finally get her trust to show her like, hey, you're actually not going anywhere. Like, even though we travel and we're moving all the time, like it's kind of like horses in the wild, like they all move together, like they move from one resource to the next, but like they're still together in that unit. And that's how we're moving on the trail. And like, she's finally, like, I feel just in the last month or so, like settled in and, you know, felt like more of a community member in a way. And she's like, you know, I haven't been asking a whole lot of her, I guess, in terms of like walking and packing, but last fall we kept having those problems where she was pulling back. And, you know, like that one story across the Dolly Sods, which is featured in another podcast of me chasing her through the freaking wilderness in the bush. And it was right after Chelino had just come off of his tick fever case, and he was so weak, but yet he pulled through for me. And, you know, it was because Abilene didn't trust me as a leader, and she didn't want to be a part of the herd. And like, she just was trying to get away. And it was just unfortunate that it happened that way. But now, like, anytime Abilene gets loose, like she just stands there like, all right, like whatever you guys do. And like, she follows. And, you know, it's really cool to see her growth throughout this trip too, because I think like she's really come a long ways from where she was. So.
Well, I think it's cool that you got back in touch with Tenny about it. And I know she's going to join up with you at some point within the next couple of months. And so it'll be cool for her to be right there with you guys and to see that evolution of how far Abilene has come and to see it in person too. So that's very cool. Very cool. So I do have another question. I want to come back to, we were talking about the leather work and hats and all that kind of stuff. And I want to hear a little bit about your follow-up to the trauma day and what you've done with that, because I saw a picture on Facebook and I think I'd like to see it. Do you have it with you?
It's out in the truck right now.
Never mind then. Don't worry. We can add it in. I'll drop it in.
Yeah. So the snake that bit my dog, I noticed that you didn't cut it out. It was good because you know, before I made that post on Facebook, like I did a lot of research to see, you know, if copperheads are protected, and they're not in the state of Illinois. They're not. I was able to say that all publicly, thank goodness. But that snake now is on my hat, and so kind of tanned it a little bit along the road. While we were in the ER with Caillou, Marcus at the time, he had skinned the snake out and he put it on a board for me and put it under salt and then later borax. Is that? Yeah. And so then, you know, we got back into like the journey of everything, and it just sat on the board. Well, at that time, the storage unit, there's been so many logistical things happen, but for like a couple weeks, and then it sat on the trailer and I kept spilling it. I vividly remember spilling it in St. Louis at the carriage company. Like it fell off and just all of that crap just fell on the ground. So, yeah. And then I had to clean it out of my trailer because I knocked it off of there a couple times. So it was just getting in the way being on the board, and, you know, maybe not great to just have this dead thing laying around for so long. So, finally back at Royal Paint Stables, I pulled it off of the board. I cleaned it up, put it in a solution of rubbing alcohol and pure glycerin, and let it kind of sit and simmer in there for a couple days to kind of make sure that all of it was cured. And then took it out, hung it up, let it dry for 24 hours. Katrina and I went to Walmart and I bought a belt for super cheap and some like little leather stuff. And yeah, I just ended up gluing. That was the technique that I studied on YouTube University, like gluing the snake hide to a belt to fit what I wanted on my hat. And yeah, so it looks sharp for being as simple and crude put together as it is. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how that turned out. And then I sprayed it with a clear coat just to try to keep the scales on, which I don't know now, like maybe I should have rubbed the scales off a little bit more so it was just the skin, but I don't know, learning as I go along this trip, you know. So yeah, now we have a permanent reminder of yeah, that day, and just to remember what all, you know, like the risks, the inherent risks that we take every day to be out here on the trail for these horses.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to see it in person. The pictures look amazing. And I don't know if that's going to be a special hat that you just wear for special parades and occasions, or if that's going to be an everyday one. But
right now it's my only straw hat. And so I can't wear my black belt. So it's going to be my hat for the rest of the journey. And then maybe I'll hang it on a wall after this journey. Yeah. And it'll have its own stories still. That's for sure.
There you go. Well, I do have one last little bit of something I want to talk to you about, because I know we've been talking a long time, but this one's really important because as I was reading through things on Facebook, you guys are at a stage where you're leaving some of these big events that you've had to do, and now you're off on the trail and you're getting ready to be going. And so finances, logistics, all of that stuff can't be easy. And, Lisa Dearson, executive director for the foundation, has had some issues with a fall and an injury and all that. So she's having to play catch up too. So what can people do to help right now as you're leaving? You're getting ready to get to Colorado. You're not quite there yet. You need places to stay. Is it still, we're trying to fundraise? What can people do to help right now?
Fundraising is huge right now. And, before this phone call, we talked like 3 hours before this. And since my phone call with you, so much more has changed. Like now we're going to drive, and this just goes back to like the crazy logistics of, and like how flexible we all have to be as a team. But we're actually going to drive all the way to Colorado Springs. And, for the safety of the horses, like there's people that are supposed to come ride with me. And like, unfortunately, like we can't physically ride because of the safety of the team, and I can't put my horses through that. And it goes back to, I think the number one priority of this trip is to inspire more horse adoptions. And how do we do that? And we don't do that by, killing off anyone on their own team or leading to any risk or injury. That's Zen in the background playing with the toy.
Hey,
yeah. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fast forward to Colorado Springs. We're going to meet with a friend who you may or may not have met when we were in Denver. She was a really close friend of mine in high school. She's got 40 acres. Right now, the horses are currently in some stalls at the local fairgrounds, which has been great, but they're Mustangs. They aren't exactly like loving being in the stalls, and they need to move around. So, and it's been too hot to move them. And so turning them out on 40 acres, the team here, they're going to maybe head back to Chicago for a week or two, and I'm going to handle some more things behind the scenes while Lisa is recovering, and kind of get more of our poop in a group essentially, before we continue forward into Denver. And, Colorado is just like this awesome place, and Kansas has been wonderful in terms of events and like inspiring more adoptions. And so I do feel a little guilty having not ridden a lot of Kansas, but the connections that we've made here are super important and really incredible and powerful long term. But for the safety of the team, we got to go. We got to get to a place that we can kind of reset everyone a little bit. And financially, there's been some things go on where I won't be getting the same funding that I was previously from a few sponsors. And so that's my scariest thing right now. And so like I feel like I'm going to take a week to try to rebuild and kind of solidify that. So there's Zen again. If anyone wants to donate, that's great. Katrina is actually going to be working on putting together a newsletter now. So all of you who have actually like pressed the subscribe button on our website and have never gotten an email from us ever, that's going to change now that we have Katrina here. Yay! Time to write that. Yeah, there's like 450 people that have signed up for that, that have never gotten an email. So I'm excited to finally do that. But we're also going to start talking about, getting the subscription going, because like the more people that we can get to subscribe and help us out just a little bit monthly every month, that would be really, really amazing along the way, because a little bit over every month really adds up for all of us, and it makes the biggest difference in our lives and our horses' lives. Fuel prices are super high right now, and that's affecting hay prices and even hay availability. It's been so hot that they haven't been able to grow as much as they normally do, and it's really affecting a lot of different facets of everything, back to the ripple effect. So I hate always like having to talk about finances, but that's like been the biggest, scariest thing along this trail. So if people want to donate and they can, like, please go out there. And if you can't do it, like, share with your friends and ask them to, because you just never know what's going to come in from where. And, we're like, again, in this conversation, we talked about how this has grown just from 5,000 Mustangs. So like, ultimately, like, I want to eliminate long-term holding, or not long-term holding, but holding facilities in general. when the horses come out. So we need places for these horses to go. And in order to do that, we have to successfully kind of do this trip along the way. So hi, Zen. Yeah. And in order to do that, in a lot of ways, money makes the world go round. So yeah, so to anyone who can help us in our American heritage, I mean, we are out here to help every single horse standing and holding right now. So yep, the dream and goals have all grown bigger, but we still have to get to California too. So yeah, anyone who can help out, that would be absolutely amazing.
Definitely. Well, I'm so glad to hear that, because when we hung up a little bit earlier, I was thinking, where is this going to go? What's going to happen next? And so I'm so glad you decided that for the safety. You stopped in the winter for a reason and for safety, and now summer, it's the same thing. You gotta be smart about it and take care of yourselves and take care of the horses. So great, fabulous. So that we can get this up quick, I'm not editing anything. We're going to go with all of this. It is what it is. And so I'm so glad I got to see all of you, including Zindy. And maybe next time we'll see the kittens and get to say hey. Well, we won't get to say hey to Jim, but anyway, is there anything else you want folks to know before we do close up for today?
Yeah, I mean, thank you for all of the support that we've had so far. And rolling with the punches with us. I mean, a lot of this is back to like flexibility and adaptability. And so many people have been just so open-hearted and willing to, help us in these chaotic times. I made a phone call and now I'm showing up with 4 horses, 2 dogs, a whole team of people. And like my best friend's not even there. Like this is all falling on her husband. And like for them all to say yes for that, it's just been really amazing to have that support team and network across the country and just see just how these horses are uniting everyone from the veterans programs to the prison programs and to us on the team with, like maybe we didn't have horse experience before we started. And I've learned a lot about horses just being on this trip myself. So just thank you absolutely to everyone who's helped in any way, shape or form, even if it's just liking a post that helps with our algorithms crazy enough on Facebook. So just the smallest things, just thank you from the bottom of my heart for sure.
Well, thank you. And thank all of you. It was great to see you, David. Great to meet you, Katrina, and always good to see you, Lisanne. So y'all hang in there and keep me posted. If you'd like to know more about the ride, please visit www.mustangdiscovery.com. If you'd like to support the upcoming documentary or docuseries, please visit jamediaconnections.com. We really do appreciate your support.